What's going on, guys? Welcome back to this week's second exclusive segment from the greatest podcast on turf. I'm Ryan.
And I'm Anthony.
As you guys can see, we're rocking the Sooners gear. He's throwing up signs. Basically, it is rivalry week. We got the Red River Showdown, Oklahoma versus Texas. Talk Texas. Obviously, we're going to take home the dub on Saturday. But getting back to it, for this exclusive segment, we are going to be doing our weekly Stardom Sit-em episode, looking at guys who have favorable, non-favorable matchups, some guys that are on the fringe if you want to start them or not, and we're going to bump them up or bump them down.
Yeah, pretty much. Be sure to check out this week's Week 5 NFL Predictions podcast. We were joined by a very special guest. If you guys remember from a while back, we had our boy AJ on. He's also in tomorrow's Best Bets video. Be on the lookout for that. Our current Best Bets record is... Hold on, don't tell me. Stall them while I'm looking it up.
Our current Best Bets record is pretty good. We are above
500.
Above 500, so that's really all that matters in terms of
find it 'cause I'm
making money.
Our Best Bets record is 16-11. Not good, not bad, but we're still up money. You won like what, $50 last week. I won about $20 off solo bets. My parlay card crapped the bed because I bet against the Dallas Cowboys, but that's beside the point. Check out our NFL Predictions podcast with AJ. It got heated. If you guys remember, we talked about the Broncos-Steelers predictions way back. I got ganged up on again. Be sure to check it out. It got heated. Talked about every single game. Also, best bets tomorrow. And with that being said, Boomer Sooner, here's a word from our sponsor.
Little Italy Pizzeria. They got the best cheesesteaks, the best pizza in all of Delaware. Got a location in Townsend, Middletown. Come in. You know, obviously we've been saying it for weeks now. There's a TV on every single wall. Come in, watch the football games. Come in, have a drink. Come in, bring the family, have some lunch, have some dinner. It's a great family restaurant. Good people, good food, good prices. Come check it out.
The best prices around. Nobody can compete with us. Prices got raised and nobody can still compete with us. We're the best in the state. I make the best in the state. I'm the best at what I do. Call it what you want. I don't care. And after a 2-minute intro, stardom sit-ems.
I'll start us off with my first stardom, and it is a quarterback, and it is Joey Burrow against the Green Bay Packers. The Packers are going to be without Jair Alexander, Zadarius Smith, and it's looking like Preston Smith. Those are what?
They got Jalen Smith. They're fine.
Jalen Smith probably won't play, most likely. So they're without their two edge rushers and their stud corner. Got Joe Burrow coming in with a loaded receiving room. I can see this game being a shootout. You got two explosive offenses, and the Packers defense is really struggling without those three guys. Obviously, they're the three arguably best players on the defense besides Kenny Clark. So yeah, I see Joe Burrow doing pretty good in this game. If it's a blowout, there's garbage time. But if it's a shootout, like I kind of see happening, you can start Joe Burrow with confidence, and he's out there on waivers in some leagues.
Yeah, I like that one. Talked about this game a lot more on the podcast in our Best Bets episode. Wink, wink. Be sure to check that out tomorrow. For my first stardom quarterback this week,
wow,
going with my boy Mac Jones, baby. Mac Jones traveling down south to the Houston Texans. I know, it's Mac Jones. I'm a believer. Kind of, maybe, I think. I'm starting to believe in him. I don't know.
Should it? No offense.
Sir, I mean, I may have been wrong about him. I don't know yet. Still kind of early to tell. But the Houston Texans have the worst defense in football. They look terrible. The Texans aren't a very good football team, and they're starting to finally come back down to earth after that Week 1 victory. We've been saying they're bad since the offseason. They're still bad. They're showing their true colors. Davis Mills is terrible. The entire team is terrible. And Mac Jones is going to have a field day. Enough said. Oh, and my second stardom quarterback this week, we got Kirk Cousins traveling down to Detroit. I know last week was kind of tough. Kirk Cousins and the Vikings, the high-powered offense, was only held to 7 points against the Cleveland Browns. But to be fair, the Cleveland Browns have one of the best defenses in football, and they're finally starting to develop and click and look as good as we thought they were going to be. So I'm not looking at it, and here's a team that they're playing against a Lions team that just came out and let Justin Fields torch him in his second career start. So I mean, and Kirk Cousins is a much more veteran quarterback than Justin Fields, and they have a lot more weapons than the Chicago Bears do. Yeah, it's a division game, but if you need to stream a quarterback this week, arguably one of the best ones to stream is Kirk Cousins this week, and I know he's probably available in the waivers unless it's a super flex league or unless every team in your league has at least two quarterbacks.
Yeah, the only thing that worries me about Kirk Cousins is if the Vikings absolutely destroy the Lions and they just bench Kirk Cousins. But no, with that being said, I'll go ahead and jump to my sit-em quarterbacks. And this one is kind of a shocker to some probably. It is Matt Ryan going up against the Jets. Turns out the Jets are good at something, and that is the pass defense. They've only allowed 2 passing touchdowns this whole entire season. That's impressive. They allow their points to running backs. That's what they do. This game is in London. This game is an early game. So in my professional opinion, would you really want to wake up early and watch the Falcons play the Jets because you started Matt Ryan? Absolutely not. Just don't start Matt Ryan. Sleep in and don't waste your time on this game. And that's all I'm going to say.
If you have to start Matt Ryan in fantasy, I will say this, your team probably sucks. Just going to throw it out there. Your team's probably terrible if Matt Ryan's your starting quarterback when there's 31 other guys that I'd rather start. Unless you're a super flex, of course, which in that case I can see. But if you're just in a regular league and you're starting Matt Ryan,
I'm sorry. Your
team's bad. Is that your only
sit-em? That is my only sit-em.
All right, cool. And for my sit-em, I know I may look like a hypocrite, but I'm going to go ahead and sit Baker Mayfield this week. I know. It is Texas week. It is rivalry week. As Baker Mayfield said, one of the hardest captions I've ever seen. Him in a Browns jersey, he said, "Orange on me, but it ain't burnt. Horns down forever." You know what week it is. And he just, actually, I lost the post. But yeah, Baker said that, and I'm sitting him this week. The Chargers defense is very good. They are the second best pass defense in the league, I think. They're the second best defense against the pass this year for fantasy. We'll touch on that more later. But yeah, Baker Mayfield's just not a good start this week. Derek Carr and the Raiders have been playing out of their mind. I know Baker Mayfield's better than Derek Carr, but their offenses are kind of similar and kind of. But yeah, the Chargers defense has looked pretty good. I know they've given up some points, but they still look good. The Browns offense didn't really click last week against the Vikings defense, who I didn't think was very good. So just for this week's purposes only, I'm probably sitting my boy Baker. It hurts, but I'm down forever.
That's fair. That's going to wrap up our quarterbacks. So I'm going to go ahead and jump to my 2 stardom running backs this week. The first one is Zack Moss. I've been kind of rolling with him heavy, and people are kind of starting to doubt him. They believe that Zack Moss is only doing good because he's in shootout games, and they have to score a touch. They're scoring a lot of touchdowns, so Zack Moss is likely to get one if you keep scoring. Well, it turns out they're playing the Kansas City Chiefs this week, and there is going to be a lot of touchdowns on the board. It's hard to envision Zack Moss not getting at least one of those touchdowns. So you might not be starting Zach Wilson if you're in Zach Moss. If your running backs are stacked, but if you're doing like a daily fantasy lineup and Zack Moss is probably pretty cheap, I would look into adding him and spending money elsewhere. The next guy I'm going to be talking about, and this is probably a must start until he proves you wrong, that is Cordarrelle Patterson.
Yeah.
At the start of the year, I would have told you that you were absolutely crazy if you said Cordarrelle Patterson would be the second highest fantasy running back in all of football. Now he's going up against a Jets team that has allowed most points in PPR to running backs. And I don't know if you guys know this, but Cordarrelle Patterson is a PPR running back. That's what he is. He is a receiving running back that can do both, score a lot of touchdowns. I see the Falcons winning this game, and I can see Cordarrelle Patterson having himself a day. He's been on a roll lately, right until the wheels fall off.
And if you didn't know, in Yahoo Fantasy Football League, you can you still play? Yes. You can still play him as a wide receiver and a running back. Starting running back and a receiver who's a PPR monster. If you have 2 stud running backs already, can't go wrong with starting them. And for my stardom running back this week, I only have one. And I'm kind of hopping on the Damien Williams bandwagon here. Chicago's traveling to Vegas. Boomer Sooner. Damien Williams stepped in for David Montgomery last week when he left about halfway through the second quarter, I would say it was. And he didn't have a bad day. He got a lot of touches. I think 15 PPR points he had. Scored a touchdown, and they were feeding him a lot, especially because they got up. I can see this game possibly being high scoring because the Raiders defense ain't that good and the Bears defense hasn't looked good. It's Justin Fields' second start, but Damien Williams is a guy who will get involved in the passing game as well. So, I mean, go ahead and start him. He's the running back one there. I don't know who their backup is.
I saw him, but I did not remember his name.
No, not Tariq Cohen.
I don't think Tariq Cohen's hurt.
I don't know.
David Williams is in line for a lot of touches.
Yes.
Enough said.
Moral of the story, there we go. And then I'll move on to my sit-em. Here's a guy who you probably drafted in hopes to be your sleeper running back, and he's sorry, and he is in a committee. Myles Gaskin, like Ryan said.
I would have told you.
traveling to Tampa.
It
Myles
sucks.
Gaskin. Who would have thought Myles Gaskin would be in a running back committee with Salvin Ahmed and
Malcolm Brown.
Yeah, you heard me right, Malcolm Brown. And he's playing against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense, who is the best against a rushing attack in the NFL. They've shut down every running back they played so far this season, including the names of Zeke Elliott, Damian Harris, Cordarrelle Patterson. Oh, he kind of had a good day, but in the passing game. But yeah, more or less story, Tampa Bay. Their secondary's banged up, but they're still good for shutting down a running back. Vita Vea is playing out of his mind. And Myles Gaskin is now in a committee, so if you have him, I'm sorry, but you got to keep him on the bench unless he becomes the running back one again. But if he keeps seeing committee touches, you got to sit him for the year prior.
Yeah, most likely you drafted Myles Gaskin too high, and at this point you just got to hold on to him and hope that it works out. So I'll go ahead and jump to my first running back sit-em this week, and it is Josh Jacobs going up against the Chicago Bears defense. Chicago is pretty good, and Josh Jacobs I don't think is fully recovered from his leg injury. We saw last week he absolutely dominated touches. I get that 100%, but he just doesn't look right. He doesn't look like himself. The Raiders seem to suck. I mean, they're 3-1, but they're not good on the run side of the football. They're more of a passing team. Their offensive line isn't very good. Josh Jacobs, I don't trust starting him when he's banged up, and he's still banged up. So I'm going to go ahead and sit Josh Jacobs until he finally looks right.
Alrighty, and for my next sit-em running back, I'm going to go ahead and sit Latavius Murray this week in the Ravens against traveling at home versus the Indianapolis Colts.
Traveling at home?
Yeah. The Colts defense hasn't been horrible against running backs this year, but I mean, the Colts defense has been okay against running backs. Yeah, they gave up a lot to Derrick Henry, but Derrick Henry is one of the best in the league. They held Chris Carson to minimal gains. They held Myles Gaskin to minimal gains last week, and they played one more team. Who was it? I just looking at.
I think Alex Collins might have torched them. I'm not sure.
And the Colts shut down the Rams. Their defense. No, I'm talking about their defense.
Oh.
Yeah. So yeah, Colts defense has been okay against running back so far. They got Darius Leonard in the middle. Yeah, the Colts defense has been good against the run. Latavius Murray, I don't really know what the Ravens are doing at running back. 2 weeks ago it was Tyson Williams. Now Latavius Murray's taking over. Le'Veon Bell, who got a good bit of touches. So, I mean, I'm going to go ahead and sit Latavius Murray just because the Ravens' whole entire run game is very, very weird to me, and it's just a situation I don't really want to be a part of. So, I mean, I don't own him, but if you do, I probably would sit him this week.
My next sit-em running back is Myles Sanders going up against his Carolina defense.
Sorry.
I know Carolina is pretty weak against the run. We just saw Zeke Elliott and Tony Pollard torch these guys. But Myles Sanders, it's looking like his running back one in Philly is starting to be over. Kenneth Gainwell just keeps getting more and more involved. He's looking better and better each week. I'm pretty sure he has more PPR points than Myles Sanders. It's definitely really close. And over the past couple of weeks, we've seen Kenneth Gainwell do better than Myles Sanders. Myles Sanders ain't scoring a lot of touchdowns. He's not catching passes because he's had drop ball problems. He's also had fumble problems. So I could see them getting Kenneth Gainwell more and more involved, and I could see him having a better day than Myles Sanders. So I'm going to sit Myles Sanders in the 0 leagues that I have him.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that one 100%, especially the Eagles' defense sucks. So if the Eagles are playing in shootouts and giving up a lot of points, Myles Sanders ain't going to be in the game catching passes. It's going to be Kenneth Gainwell. Converted receiver to running back. That's why they drafted him to catch passes, because they didn't believe in Myles Sanders' ability to be involved in the passing game. Kenneth Gainwell is a guy who can line up out wide. He'll catch a screen pass out of the backfield. He'll have a route out of the backfield, and that's just something the Eagles and Nick Sirianni haven't been using Myles Sanders for. And like the greatest podcast on turf told you all through fantasy football offseason, Myles Sanders is terrible, and he is not a good fantasy football running back, so therefore you're going to sit him. And I think that's about to wrap up our running backs. Now we got to move on to our stardom, sit-em wide receivers. I had 2 receivers this week. The first one is Tyler Lockett versus the Rams. As you guys all know, it's a big rivalry. Jalen Ramsey versus DK Metcalf. Rams secondary took a lot of big hits. They got Tyler Lockett lining up across DK Metcalf, who's going to be getting mirrored by Jalen Ramsey most likely. They're going to be throwing the ball. This could be a high score because Seattle's defense ain't very good, so they're probably going to have to throw the ball a lot against the high-power Rams offense. So Tyler Lockett, if you have him, he's probably a must-start this week.
I actually kind of disagree with this one, but the greatest podcast on turf has disagreements. But
I know you disagree with this next one, and so does every other fantasy analyst in
yeah.
football.
Anyways, I'll go and jump to my first start on my receiver. Now, this kind of mirrors the quarterback start. That is Jamar Chase going up against the Green Bay Packers. I started Jamar Chase last week. He didn't do so hot because he didn't score his touchdown, but he still got 5 touchdowns in, I think, 4 games, whatever. Or 4 touchdowns and 4, whatever. Jamar Chase is going up against his Packers defense. As I mentioned before, they don't have the Smith brothers rushing the passer, and Jair Alexander is not going to be on Jamar Chase because he is hurt.
Yep.
So I'm starting Jamar Chase with good confidence that this game will be a shootout or there will at least be garbage time. I see Jamar Chase scoring a touchdown this week and bouncing back.
I agree. I'd probably go as far to say as you could start probably almost any one of the Bengals receivers and probably be in for a good day. Moving on to the next guy I know you don't agree with. I'm going to go ahead and start Cortland Sutton at the Steelers. This one is going me based off of the Steelers secondary is terrible. And even if Drew Lock starts, him and Cortland Sutton have a real connection. Drew Lock's finally getting a week to practice with the starters, first team reps. Teddy Bridgewater may even play. They say he's flying through the concussion protocol. Either way, I'm starting Cortland Sutton this week. I don't think the Steelers secondary is that good. So yeah, I'm starting Cortland Sutton this week, and I'm not really thinking twice about it. The Steelers are terrible, and if you want our full thoughts on this game, if you want to hear me argue with him and AJ for about an hour about this game, link in the description. Check it out. You don't want to miss it. It is a must listen.
Obviously, I disagree with that one. Also, so I'm going to jump to my next start on my receiver. That is Emmanuel Sanders going up against the Kansas City Chiefs. It's kind of for simple reasons. Yeah, it's for simple reasons.
Yeah.
You got the Bills going up against the Chiefs. They're going to score a lot of points. Emmanuel Sanders is coming off of 2 solid games back-to-back. He's the number 2 option in this offense, and sometimes the number 2 is just as good as the number 1 in fantasy purposes. So I see Emmanuel Sanders having a pretty good day, and there's a good chance he has yards and probably a touchdown.
Yeah, I agree with that one. Kansas City secondary is terrible. Moving on to the sit-ems, right? Do you have any more sit-ems?
Nope.
Now, sit-em wide receivers, Boo-Boo Schuster versus the Denver Broncos. Denver's defense, I just saw they reactivated Ronald Darby back off of injury reserve, so they're getting him back. Is Pastor Tam banged up at all?
He was hurt.
Is he, do we know if he's out? But yeah, either way, they're getting Ronald Darby back. Their defense is... Pastor Tam didn't practice. Ronald Darby's back. So either way, the Broncos secondary is still good. They got that no-fly zone 2.0 going on. I think Ben Roethlisberger's god-awful. I think he is arguably the worst starting quarterback in the NFL right now. That's not a Houston Texan or a Miami Dolphin, which ain't saying much. But yeah, Ben Roethlisberger's look terrible. I would rather start Chase Claypool or Deontay Dropson over Juju this week. I'm not a Juju guy, and I think the Broncos' secondary is going to shut down the Steelers' offense this week.
That's fair. I'll go ahead and jump to my first sit-on wide receiver this week, and it is Devonta Smith going up against Carolina. I know he did pretty good last week, but he's going up against a Carolina's defense that is very good against the pass, not so much good against the run. I see Philly doing good in the running game. I see Jalen Hurts and Kenneth Campbell having a pretty good, solid day. But I don't see Devonta Smith having one. The Carolina Panthers defense is only allowing 150 passing yards a game. That's pretty low. And Philly's not very good at passing. So I don't see Devonta Smith having a good game.
This may be a good matchup. Former SEC guys going at it against each other. Devonta Smith and C.J. Henderson. C.J. Henderson was drafted a year before Devonta Smith, but they still battled in college. I don't know who won. But the next guy who I'm sitting... Kenny Golladay for the New York Giants, traveling down south for their division rival, the Dallas Cowboys. This one's simple. Trayvon Diggs has been having himself a career year so far. 5 interceptions in 4 games. It's crazy. Every time he gets the ball thrown his way, he's getting an interception breakup. Trayvon Diggs has looked very good. Breakout player of the year, defensive player of the year conversation. I know it's early, but still that's high talk for a corner at this early in the season who's playing this good. And Kenny Golladay, yeah, he had a good game last week against a New Orleans Saints secondary, who the New Orleans Saints are very inconsistent. And if Kenny Galladay's still the receiver one, he's probably going to be drawing matchups from Trayvon Diggs, and the Diggs has been playing out of his mind, so I'm going to go ahead and sit Kenny Golladay.
I'll go ahead and jump to my next sit-on wide receiver. That is Odell Beckham Jr. going up against the Chargers. Right now, Baker Mayfield's struggling, probably with a shoulder injury, and he has no real connection with Odell Beckham Jr. just because of the time that they've been off. That combined with the Chargers' average or second fewest fantasy points allowed to wide receivers. So, with that being said, I'm sitting Odell Beckham this week until I can see a Baker Mayfield Odell Beckham Jr. connection. So yeah, until then, he's riding the bench until I see it happen.
Unfortunately. All right, and then we got four stardom, sit-em tight ends between the two of us. So for my stardom, another Buffalo Bill, we got Dawson Knox. He's been playing out of his mind. Josh Allen came out and said that he has an ultimate trust in Dawson Knox for the red zone. Look for that to continue this week. Like Ryan said earlier, there's going to be a lot of points scored in this game. And like we said last week and the week before, if you can have any parts of this high-powered Buffalo offense, you want to take him. I was able to grab Dawson Knox off the waivers in one of my leagues. So therefore, I'm starting him this week against the Chiefs, and I'm not thinking twice about it, and you should too.
My stardom tight end is Dalton Schultz, Dallas Cowboy, going up against the New York Giants. It's kind of pretty simple. He's on a 2-game tear. Last game he had 58 yards and a touchdown. The game before he had 80 yards and 2 touchdowns. He's going up against a Giants defense that isn't very good against tight ends. They're actually one of the bottom teams against tight ends. So with that being said, if you picked up Dalton Schultz, congratulations. We mentioned Dalton Schultz and Dawson Knox were the tight end pickups. And it's looking like both of these guys could be in the tight end one mix all season long. Dallas Cowboys, Dak Prescott seems to have a pretty good relation with Dalton Schultz, at least until at least until Michael Gallup comes back. So with that being said, I would roll with Dalton Schultz until the wheels fall off.
Yeah, Dalton Schultz, it looks like he's averaging about 10 yards a catch too.
Not too bad.
That's 2 points for PPR in theory. In theory, you're getting 2 points for every catch. In practice, probably as well. But you know what they say, numbers can lie sometimes, film don't. And for my final sit-em tight end, this is a guy I could go either way with. Could go start him or sit him, but if Teddy Bridgewater doesn't play, I'm probably sitting Noah Fant this week. We saw last year when the Broncos receiving core was banged up, Drew Lock and Noah Fant couldn't really develop a connection till later in the season down the line when their receiving core was Tim Patrick, KJ Hamler, and couldn't name the third. But yeah, Drew Lock, he don't really throw to his tight ends like that, and Noah Fant is going against the Steelers defense, who has been pretty good against tight ends so far. They shut down Darren Waller. They shut down Robert Tonyan like I said they would last week because they got Devin Bush in the middle who can cover a tight end. They got Minka over top who can cover a tight end in the middle of the field. So, I mean, if you start Noah Fant, I mean, I'm not going to blame you for it. He's only had one bad game. But if you sit him, I'm not going to blame you for it either. So, I mean, it's just as a safer play this week is to sit Noah Fant, but it just depends how you feel, honestly.
My next sit-em tight end, and this is a guy that you shouldn't have drafted if you listen to us, it is Kyle Pitts going up against the Jets. I mentioned earlier that they have only allowed 2 passing touchdowns. That's one reason. The next reason is they've only allowed tight ends to get a combined 165 yards. It's not good either. That's probably about, 40, 30 receiving yards a game.
160 yards.
And no tight end, and no 2 touchdowns, so just not much.
4.
That's not much. So
No.
I am sitting Kyle Pitts. London games tend not to score that much really either. And like I said, you don't want to wake up early and watch this game, so just go ahead and bench him and do yourself a favor, you know?
Yeah, and like we said, if you drafted Kyle Pitts, you probably weren't listening to us, and you probably drafted him way earlier than you should have. I think that's going to wrap this one up. If you guys have any questions, be sure to drop them in the comments below or drop them on our TikTok page as well. We post a consensus all teams start them, all teams sit them every Thursday on there for our start 'em sit 'em. So comment under there, check that out, link in the description. Like, subscribe, check out the podcast, check out Best Bets tomorrow, check out all of our other content, like, subscribe, show us love. Boomer Sooner,
Horns down, baby.
Tuck Fexus. See you guys next time.
Later.
Peace.